Are you a solopreneur, a team of 5 ready to scale, or a remote team in SLC looking for a new space? Look no further. The Square has everything you need. Fast Wi-Fi, meeting rooms, great coffee, daily breakfast and snack, and a vibrant community to keep you inspired. From dedicated desks to private offices and enterprise suites, there's a space for you. No matter where you are in the journey, the Square has a spot to help you succeed. Check out the Square's co-working and flexible office space today and take your work to the next level. Let's be honest, we're all juggling a lot these days. Between work, family, and everything else, the last thing you need is to spend hours dealing with car-related tasks. That's where Fleetly comes in. Fleetly is your personal car concierge service designed to give you your time back. Need an oil change, car service, ride to the airport, Fleetly takes care of it. Want your vehicle detailed or even sold? Fleetly's got you covered. No more waiting in lines, no more wasted weekends at the shop, just more time to do what really matters, whether it's growing your career, enjoying moments with your family, or just kicking back and relaxing. Right now, Small Lake City listeners can get 10% off with code SLCPOD at checkout. Visit Fleetly.com and let them handle the hassle so you don't have to. Again, use SLCPOD at checkout for 10% off.
Too many of us believe that we have less in common with half of the country than we have in common. I don't believe it, actually. Sometimes you feel it, but it's not something I believe. I thought, this is where I belong. These are my people. It's an awesome place that is standout, welcoming, not just for Utah, but I think for a lot of the Intermountain West. With feeling out the opportunities of life especially when you're led by passion, and I am a passionate person. Like, I show up because I love you, even if I don't know your name. And to get to do that kind of work is like, it's moving to keep not only our economy strong here, but our livability most of all. This was really fun. Thank you for having me on the show. And I'm so glad that you're making our Small Lake City just a little bit bigger.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Small Lake City podcast. I'm your host, Eric Nilsson. And this week's guest is someone who was on my original list of guests when I was first starting the podcast. It's someone who has done tremendous amounts for the city and seen it in some of its biggest growth throughout the years. It's none other than Mayor Erin Mendenhall. Now, we talk a lot about her moving here as a child, growing up, finding public service, and she is someone who's been serving the city since 2013 on city council until winning the mayor race in 2019 and winning re-election in 2023. We talk a lot about a lot of the issues that are in Salt Lake right now, from house affordability to homelessness and climate change and the Great Salt Lake and air quality. So I think there's something for everybody to take away from this and be excited about the future and where Salt Lake is headed. So enjoy, and I will see you on the other side.
What's your favorite ASMR?
My favorite ones are, there's this one Instagram account I follow where it's kind of like the putty that's been in like almost like nail polish, so it just like crackles.
Ooh,
really
I haven't
soothing.
Seen that, no.
And it'll always be one of those catchy, like, what do you think, what color's inside of this one? You're like, oh, it's got to be like green, I think. And then it's like blue, and you're like, oh no, what about the next one?
I'm going to look for that. I like to watch people carving wood.
Oh.
Like hand carve, slowly designing an oak leaf or something.
You just hear that nice little save going through.
Little curls of wood are coming off.
It's like the perfect ribbon curl.
Yes.
But it's wood, so it's like that much more satisfying.
And fragile.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable, there's kind of, let's call it this whole subculture of social media of things that just give us a little bit of mental peace. Mm-hmm. One that comes up that me and my sister share, like pimple popping videos, and it's very left or right on that one.
You can find anything you want.
And then you get...
Until TikTok ends. And then you have to go to a different app.
Red Note, here we come. That's a whole nother conversation.
Red Book.
Yes. That's the one. Sorry, I keep saying Red Note.
Hi, China.
Yeah. They're like, if we weren't listening now, we are.
And you know it. And you're actually okay with it if you're here.
It's so weird. There's so many things going on in the world that I never thought sometimes I look at the news and it's like, oh, this is happening, or this is this dystopia that we found, and there's a lot of, even just thinking about 1984, the book, and being like, oh, yeah, how did you know this was all going to be this way?
Not that science fiction.
I guess at some point, science fiction stops being science fiction.
You know that saying that there's an element of truth in every joke?
Yes.
That's what makes it funny.
Yes.
And I think science fiction is kind of that way too.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm reading on the topic of science fiction and like dystopian worlds, and reading this book that my friend Stephen Conkler got me into called Red Rising. It's been out since like 2014, but everybody's now finally getting into it. I mean, it's kind of like a Hunger Games-y future rising from the dust, but it's amazing. Like if I had to put it in terms of other books, it's like Harry Potter, Twilight, Hunger Games, Red Rising. And so I usually don't read a lot of novels. I'm a lot of biography, psychology, anthropology books. So it takes a lot for me to be like, all right, pause, we're focused, lock in, and go. So
I picked up my first fantasy book in like a decade. Actually, my first nonfiction book in a decade, 2 years ago. The House on the Cerulean Sea. Did you read it?
No, but I've heard the title.
It was so good. It was so good. And the experience of reading fiction, like reading just for fun, I literally hadn't done it in a decade. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can read pretty fast, actually. Yes. Because this is fun. I like this.
Like once there's that moment when it like clicks where you don't want to go to bed. You don't want to put the book down. Oh my gosh, is it this time? Like, so the book I'm reading now is on audiobook, and now I'm just like, hey, what can I do to listen?
Keep listening.
Because I can't just like sit on my couch like a sociopath and just stare at the wall, but I can take the dogs on a walk.
You're entitled to do that, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's better than sitting in your car and staring out the windshield.
Just, is that man okay? Like, I don't want to find out.
Are we going?
It's all, I never do a hard start. I always love a good cold open. But I'm so excited to be both here and here. So first here in the City County building. This is my favorite building in all of Salt Lake. Wow. There's so many Instagram accounts you'll follow that are SLC history, old buildings, and you kind of like get this, like we traded that for like the 1980s disgustingness that it is.
We almost did that here.
Oh, I know. That, and then like what's going on with West and those conversations. I'm like, I know it's harder. Sometimes there's like probably some cheesy life metaphor, but sometimes it's harder to take what you have and fix it all and make it pretty again when it's easier just to tear it down and rebuild. But we got to keep a lot of that. So I'm glad
I'm grateful to walk into this building. I think about it almost every single time I walk in, which is very, very often. But it was a 4-3 split vote to save it.
That's insane. It was that close.
It was that close. We almost lost this building. And the concept was for something like the county complex on State in 21st South. Like, can you imagine? They're moving out of those. They don't even want to be there anymore.
Yeah, not a good place to be.
Although this building with its really voluminous rooms, super high ceilings, it's a little bit hard to heat and cool. True. Running electrical through here is not easy, but it is totally worth it. We love being here.
Anything that keeps culture in Salt Lake, because people always joke that Utah tends to be a little culturalist when we look at a lot of other places. And shout out the Greeks, because I fundamentally believe that the Greeks are one of the communities that's held their culture so prominently. Because you look at any other secondary, primary city, there's always some sort of like Chinatown. There's always some sort of Little Italy. There's some like just kind of these kind of like typical bullet points on a city, and we have some of that. And there's plans
We've lost so much.
And I love that there's plans to get it back.
Yeah, but like Japantown.
Exactly.
Which should never be smaller than it is right now. And we explicitly want to help that community regrow.
Agreed. And so I love that that's part of the development plans that are underway. And so this building, I love it. It's walking in, I made a joke that it reminds me of Parks and Rec because I started reading it, watching it again.
Yeah, I can't watch the show anymore.
I don't, there's certain shows you watch, like too close to home. I can't do this.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows that I can't watch anymore.
Makes sense. Probably any political show, I don't even want to, I don't want to take my work home more with me than I have to.
Yeah, I want to watch Bob Ross paint some friendly clouds, and I want to go with Rick Steves to Slovenia on PBS. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
I do. I know Bob Ross. Okay. The other one I didn't.
Rick Steves.
I'll look it up.
You got to look him up.
Everybody needs
PBS
something
legend
to give you some, it's like our ASMR, just a little bit more peace in the day.
Yes.
But then also excited to be here because obviously, when I was kind of brainstorming the podcast, putting together the idea, I made a list of people that I would want to have as far as like a guest list. And if you're going to have a local podcast interviewing people doing things in Salt Lake, I mean, it makes sense to interview the mayor.
Thanks for inviting me.
No, thanks for coming. I'm glad we could record here. I'm glad we could make it work because, I'm excited to sit down and chat with you about not only just what you've been up to when you're in office, but everything before then and kind of what set the stage for it all. Because,
okay.
I mean, obviously not born in Utah, born in Arizona, and then moved up when you were at least 7. Mm-hmm. But I mean, walk me through kind of the setting of your childhood, relationship with your parents that, set the stage for what happened later.
Do I get to like recline in a chaise lounge like I'm in therapy right now?
I've just got to get my notepad and my glasses that sit just barely on the end of my nose.
Yeah. I was born in Arizona, and I had the most loving parents on the planet. And I really felt adored and loved so very deeply. And then I had a little brother who's 2.5 years younger than me, and he is my best friend today. And so we have a pretty small family. Not a lot of cousins or aunts or uncles. And when I was a kid, I think I was 6 when my dad was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he worked for a company, he worked for Motorola, and he would travel to Asia often. And he'd be gone for a long period of time when he would. And he needed to get treatment for his cancer. So he left Motorola and took a job up here in Salt Lake City at a company called Eaton Kenway. That's still out there, but their offices are no longer in Salt Lake City. And we moved here without having any family here, no relationships. I was in 2nd grade, and my mom was born in Philly and raised in Philly and had this like romantic notion of a farm. So my parents and my dad was a ham radio operator.
Okay.
So we needed a yard big enough that his giant antennas wouldn't really piss off the neighbors. So they bought a 1-acre old house in South Sandy, and my mom got to have chickens and a few lambs that grew into sheep that kept our field down. And it was a dreamy way to grow up.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
I love that you get that. That everybody wins. Your dad's like, I get my ham radio,
Yeah.
the antenna's there. It can be in the chicken coop, wherever it needs to be, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can have your farm. Everybody wins.
Yeah. My brother and I loved riding bikes and building jumps. My brother went on to become a great downhill mountain bike rider and rode pro for a little while. But it was just fun to catch tadpoles and, have pets and make friends and ride your bike around the neighborhood. It was a great way to grow up. And my dad lived until I was just shy of 14. And then he passed away. And of course, like the family dynamic changes. And there's so much sadness and loneliness in the family. But I will say that I had great friends in Sandy where I was growing up, and their families were really supportive of my brother and me. And I feel really fortunate. My mom jokes like, you and your brother really could have been screwed up. Thank goodness. Oh. Yeah, we had a really fortunate childhood with the community we happened to move into.
And that's one thing that's so unique to, Utah, but Salt Lake specifically, is this, the term everybody knows who's from here is Deseret. We're industrious, we're community people, especially in hardship. Even looking at my life and the times that I've had, when I was younger and had the hard things happen, the neighborhood was there. When I was growing up, the ward was there, and people are there to lift people when it's hard. And it's also in those moments where you realize it exists, because it's not until you need the community that you realize how strong that community is.
Yes.
Especially amidst all that change and uncertainty that you need them the most.
Yeah, my family was not Mormon, but living in the suburbs, mostly surrounded with members of the prevalent religion, and most of my friends were. Yeah, I think it turned out to be, I really can't relate to the people who move here, non-religious families, and say I just felt really disconnected or I didn't feel welcome. That was absolutely not my experience. So I also grew up spending my summers in Philadelphia with my grandparents and my mom when my dad was still going to Asia And so I grew up, I'm half Lithuanian, and my grandparents were very much part of a Lithuanian community in Philly. So we'd go to Catholic church in Lithuanian, and the delis were in Lithuanian, and the folk dancing and the picnics. And so it was really cool to feel connected to a culture that was unique.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in second grade and you move to a new city and you have no friends and you wonder, who am I? Like, how do I even fit into this new context? And it makes those things, like you said about noticing how strong a community is. I noticed what made me different and unique. And it may have been the beginning of really becoming comfortable with being different.
Yeah. Which is such a huge step in anybody's life. Like I remember,
hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, and that step can be taken at different times. I mean, not everyone's growth's linear. We're not learning all the same lessons at the same time or the same age. But I mean, I moved from the avenues upper avenues, parents get divorced. I moved down to Yellcrest. It's my mom, my next oldest sister, who I love that you're talking about your relationship with your brother. My next oldest sister, Kirsten, she's 3.5 years older than me. And I mean, we both went through life events that made us reprioritize our relationship, and both went through faith crisis to the point where like, hey, can we actually have like a real relationship instead of just a lot of surface level, everything's perfect, put a smile on and nothing's wrong. And that's one thing that shaped, a lot of my life and still shapes my life today. She's the person I'm in touch with the most.
It's the best.
Yeah.
To have a sibling that you have a full adult relationship with that respects all the crap you did to each other as kids. And he's my best support in the sense that he knows all of it. Mm-hmm.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's so fun when there's that person who, worst day in the world, best day in the world, it's the same person you're calling.
Yep. Yeah.
And they're there waiting to give whatever the response they know that you need at the same time.
Shout out to my brother.
Yes. Brothers, those siblings that we have that get us through will never get enough recognition that they deserve. So when I was in second grade, I moved to a new neighborhood.
You get it.
And even if mine was from, the avenues to Yellcrest, which is, if I were to actually run, that's like 3.5 miles. But in that time of 2000, like, it could have been on the other side of the world, would have been the same. And that was hard enough. I would come home every day and be like, oh my gosh, Mom, I can't go back to the school. Let me go back there. It was just hard for me because I didn't have anybody I could connect to. I can't imagine going from like a place like Philly where there's this culture that's there. There's this family. There's your mother's, entire childhood. And then be like, hey, by the way, Salt Lake City, Utah, very different. The culture isn't there. And feeling alone, like I can't even imagine what that was like. But again, that safety net of feeling this community that you didn't know that was there. I always love the way the community comes into life, and especially when you need it the most.
I think people who choose to live in an urban setting are choosing to live in a more communal way. Whether or not we really consciously articulate that, I think a lot of us do. But I also think that living this way is actually it's a remedy for a lot of the struggle that America is facing right now, which is, in my opinion, our greatest challenge to our democracy and to the United States is that too many of us believe that we have less in common with half of the country than we have in common. I think that's a devastating concept. And believe me, I've been in like on election day, I've been there and I've felt that a lot. I'm choosing not to live with that belief. I don't believe it, actually. Sometimes you feel it, but it's not something I believe. And when we live in a communal way, especially in cities, where we're sharing sidewalks with more people, we're seeing often more diversity in our spaces like libraries and grocery stores and elementary school pickup lines and all of that. We're invited to participate in community councils, especially in Salt Lake City. We have super active neighborhood organizations. We share parks because most of us have much smaller or zero yard space. Half of our city is renters, a little bit more than half of us. And, we share a lot. So when you do that, you have to consider what's the value here? investing in me is also investing in you in so many different ways. And I actually think it's one of our most direct paths to healing this divide in our nation right now.
I agree. Like if every time I get frustrated by, world event, political, whatever might happen, I always try to talk to someone new. Because once you just sit there and talk to someone, it all goes away. It's not like all of a sudden your conversation starts with, well, what side are you on kind of thing, It's
hopefully not.
It's who are you? Where you come from? Who do you know? And that's why I love those small lake city connections is like you meet someone who could be a stranger I'm talking to, Kubla Coffee downtown and in line, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, well, you work there? Do you know so-and-so? Like, oh my gosh, that's my brother-in-law. How do you know him? That's so crazy. Like, let's send a picture to him. And it's those moments because I think of small lake city that we use, so colloquially as like the most intimate fibers of the social webs that we have in Salt Lake. And it's not just like, oh, you like to golf, I like to golf. It's like, oh my gosh, you dated that girl in high school. I dated her in college and my buddy's married to her. Like it's like all of these little things that bring us all together and goes from meeting a stranger to making a friend. And I love that there's so much priority in Salt Lake right now about fostering a lot of more of these. Because even if it's just walking down a sidewalk and seeing someone you wouldn't see, that's still an interaction you would have never had. And the more that Salt Lake becomes more walkable, more personable, there's more things bringing community together, the more that starts to dissipate. Because, at the end of the day, the fear of all of these divisions are so not sponsored by, but provoked by anxiety. And the opposite of anxiety is knowledge, because anxiety is the fear of the future that you don't know and haven't experienced. So instead, if you can say, oh, I keep meeting all these people, and that's actually different than what I've been told that these people believe. I totally agree. And I think we always like to point fingers, but it's on all of us to be like, hey, I'm going to talk to someone. I'm going to have an interaction. I'm going to chat with someone I haven't talked to in a while. And that's usually what brings it home the most.
I wanted to be here. I went to Alta High School.
Yeah, you did.
And my mom, I remember she took me on a drive after school one day when I was 16. And this is like 1996. And we went to Sugar House. We went to the old Pibs. And I remember I ordered coffee and my mom didn't care. But I'd never actually drank coffee. I did not like it, but I acted like I did for sure. And we went up 9th East and stopped at a couple of other thrift boutique-y kind of. I bought an old Postal shoulder bag that became my school bag, and then we landed at 9th and 9th, and we hung out at a couple places there. And I thought, this is where I belong. These are my people. So in my senior year, I had a couple of girlfriends, and we found a basement apartment near the Garden Park ward as a neighborhood
all of
standpoint.
My siblings, except for me, had their wedding receptions there.
Goodness sakes. Well, I definitely didn't. But I lived very near in the basement, and I moved there 2 days after I graduated high school. I think I wasn't quite 18, but I snuck out anyway.
Love that. Because I always joke with people that I wouldn't call myself a Utahn. I consider myself a Salt Lake citizen, because I too, the energy of Salt Lake, the ethos of Salt Lake, people of Salt Lake are people I relate to more. I'm not saying anything outside of Salt Lake I hate, but the further I get, just not my people, not my places. So I love that you felt like that similar energy at such a young age to be like, oh, this is calling me. This is what I want.
The longer I'm a Salt Laker, and maybe it's partially being in City Hall and looking every single day at the problems that we're facing, and how can we be more welcoming, and how can we be more supportive of the people who've built this community to stay in this community. I think that, there's a painting by Ben Steele, who's a great Utah painter. I love his work. And he did this one of Brigham Young, and it's a Norman Rockwell sort of setting. So you're looking at Brigham Young facing sideways with his T-shirt rolled up, and seeing the back of a tattoo artist who's putting the names of Brigham's wives on his bicep. And on the wall of the tattoo shop are all of these kind of Utah, Mormon, other colloquial Utah-isms that are in tattoo format, the way that a tattoo shop advertises some of what they can do well. It's a really cool painting in that. I think it's really symbolic of what Salt Lake City is. And too often, I believe, as Salt Lakers, we're like, that's not us. You're either in this camp or you're in that camp. And really, in all authenticity, we are absolutely both. We're this merger of those who built this city, those who still are here and invest so much in the city and in the building of community, and the people of the avant-garde culture who came here because we have had the highest LGBTQ per capita in the nation at times in our past. We got a perfect 100 HRC score from the Human Rights Campaign most of the last 5 years. Like, this is an awesome place that is standout, welcoming, not just for Utah, but I think for a lot of the Intermountain West. Whether you're in parts of Idaho, Wyoming, Nevada, we get people drawn in here because we are welcoming.
Totally. And you only see it increase more and more. And I mean, I grew up with this idea that, the example I always get is being on a chairlift. I've been skiing since I could walk. And my grandpa would always talk to everybody on the chairlift. He'd say the same jokes. And I love it so much. But then I hate it. It's like one of those things you hate when you're a kid. And I never talked to people on chairlifts when I was in high school, I guess college, yes. But I came home from my mission and I would just start talking to people because that's all I knew how to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, not a single person I saw today is from Utah. And the more, and that just kind of became a knowledge. But then even in the past few years, I'll run into someone like, oh my gosh, you're actually from here? I haven't met someone that's actually born here, ever. I'm like, okay, data point, got it. But there is that, it draws people here. You see all of these migrations from, East Coast, West Coast, Florida, Texas. I think there's something that calls to it all in the life that Salt Lake particularly can provide. Yeah. And it is, again, going to the community part and kind of these two sides that people always talk about. If you're on one end of the spectrum, a very, active LDS member, there's a community there. You go to your board, there's, people everywhere. That's why a lot of people come here. But then on the other side of the most strong of counterculture, a lot of which, I always joke, there's 3 people in Utah, Mormons, ex-Mormons, and Californians. And so because a lot of ex-Mormon people or people who no longer believe in the Mormon faith have this, still long for community. And so they kind of build it wherever they are or join into what it is. And that's why we have this, there's this huge counterculture and underground scene that is so vibrant and so many other just communities and groups that are.
But I want to push back just a tiny bit. And I don't think we're in discord necessarily. Yes. But what I said about the United States and this dangerous prevalence of believing that we have less in common than we have in common, I think it behooves us as a growing community to also include the recognition that our welcoming culture here is absolutely rooted in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints culture. Even if you're not a member and you haven't been and you've never been to a ward or, participated in the kind of activities that the culture, that the church is built around, it is one of our beautiful places of real overlap of what our identity is today as one of the fastest growing states in the nation and this incredible capital city that is leveling up into our future selves. We are still that too.
Yes.
We are both. We are all.
Because that's one, I always get questions of people are you Mormon? Are you LDS? I'm well, by belief, no, but by culture, yes. And so even to your point, as people maybe separate or dive deeper into it, we still have that same sort of sentiment, culture, feeling of just welcoming people into the neighborhood.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing when you move into a new neighborhood and there's all of these notes and cards and goodies and baked goods saying welcome.
Yeah.
But let's kind of go to the next phase of life for you, of kind of this preparation for, politics, public office, which I know started at, the best school in the state, obviously, University of Utah. But talk to me a little bit about that experience and what kind of path that set for you to end up where you are now.
I've always had opinions and enjoyed debating them, but I really never saw myself running for elected office. And honestly, nobody ever told me I could. I don't think you have to be told that you can, but we know in the culture of the United States, and certainly it's relevant here in the state of Utah, that you got to ask a woman on average 7 times to run for office before she says yes. And in that same vein, I just never saw myself going there. I was drawn to activism, and I became a community organizer around air quality, first with Utah Moms for Clean Air, and then eventually I became a co-founder of Breathe Utah, and Breathe's still out there doing great air quality policy work in the state. But when I was with moms and in those earlier years, even before I found Utah Moms for Clean Air, I love to go to rallies and protests. I like taking my boys when they were very little. They're 18 and 14 now. And that was just a culture I felt, or an activity and a way of expressing my political opinions that felt comfortable to me. Eventually, I knew deep down I really wanted to be inside the meeting. I was kind of tired of being outside with my poster. But I knew also that without that First Amendment exercising, that we probably wouldn't have had the meetings happen at all.
Yeah.
That it's a necessity often in politics, that there is that all of us rising up and raising our voices makes the conversation possible inside City Hall or the Capitol or wherever, in corporate boardrooms. And I wanted to be in those conversations. So founding Breathe Utah with the amazing women that I co-founded with was our conscious decision to move in a direction that took us as legitimate partners into the conversations that were determining whether or not things would be built the way that they were planned, what kind of monitoring was going to happen, who was going to be impacted, and who was going to be responsible for that. So I think that was my first step toward the love of policy work. And I really enjoyed working with Breathe Utah for a long time. And people invited me to think about running for office when Jill Love, who represented District 5, which I lived in, she was the only elected woman in Salt Lake City in terms of City Hall. Yeah, 7-member council, and Mayor Becker at the time, she was the only woman. And I said no, and I laughed the first 6 times because I have tattoos and I swear and I had no money and my friends had no money and I didn't serve on boards. I worked for a board as a nonprofit person. And I just thought, I can't get elected. And I was 33 years old.
Wow.
I didn't see anybody who looked like me. So eventually I thought, I love this community. I love making friends, meeting people on a dog walk or at the grocery store. So I'm going to give it a try. And I won with like 82% of the vote or something.
Yeah, here we are.
And it's the greatest. I love city council work. Being the mayor's better. But if anybody's out there thinking about it, especially if you're a woman in the community or someone who doesn't see themselves reflected in the people who are in City Hall right now, give it a go.
Yeah, why not you? Be the change you want to be.
Yeah.
And it's been fun, because when I look back in preparation for this, I look back at all the political episodes I had, and it's fun to know, because I try to be as equal as I can, to have diversity along all the topics, but I noticed that on the political side, I've always over-indexed on women. Councilwoman Ava Lopez Chavez, Caroline Gleich, Rochelle Morris. Then there's Blake Moore was the first one, but those 3. There's so many similar sentiments in your story of, again, like someone coming back, hey, you should do this. And they're like, no, what? No, like no. But then, eventually doing so, all of those stories. Especially Caroline's one that comes to mind the most, of just activism for. What we see so much beauty of in this. And I love that it also started with, in activism in general, but also for, clean air. Like my sister, the one I'm really close with, her boyfriend, David Garbett, who founded O2 Utah, and still does a lot of, great work for getting our air cleaner than it is, especially on a day like today. But, those are the people who feel motivated enough. Because again, you could have stayed out and on the outside and had your sign and made a been a good example for your kids, but to say, no. There's a seat at that table. I want a seat. I want to be the change that it has, because we always love to complain, but we don't like to act. But I will always love the people that do act and then take it upon themselves. And they approach you 6 times. The 7th time comes, you're like, all right, fine, I'll do this. I mean, walk me through after that decision of what it was like to actually, campaign and go find donors and actually get to office. I mean, how did that feel?
Vulnerable. Yeah, I think that vulnerability is an incredible asset, and I've always believed that, and I've cultivated that kind of awareness in my life and my practice of living.
Good.
Before I was running for office. So I wasn't afraid of the vulnerability. And I think like more generalized, even if you don't think you're ever going to run for office, or maybe you are thinking about it, but I take a lot of education from nature. And, we are living creatures among many living creatures and organisms on this planet. And a lot of the living things, trees included, tend to grow from the tips. They grow at that most vulnerable, tiny beginning of a space, not from necessarily the base of a branch, but they grow from the edges. And we do too at our best. It's at that threshold where we don't yet know what's going to be next, but that we feel a draw toward, whether it's a letting go or a leaning in or showing up or speaking up, that it's in that sort of liminal space where we don't really know what's going to come next, that we can find our greatest selves and opportunities. So when people sometimes ask me, did you always want to be the mayor? When you were a kid, did you think about it? No, I honestly didn't. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about thinking about it. And that's okay. I think that feeling out the opportunities of life especially when you're led by passion, and I am a passionate person. I hope our residents have felt that from me, that I love you. I show up because I love you. Even if I don't know your name. I don't know what your kitchen table looks like or if you have one, but I want you to be well. I want you to want to be here. I want you to feel like you belong here. And to get to do that kind of work is it's moving, And I want to be in that space where I want to be with people like the team I get to work with who are not afraid when we don't know the answer yet. We're into it. We're motivated by it. And gosh, it's a cool gift, but you don't necessarily have to be in this room or in this building to work in that way. And when my kids were younger, they're 9, 14, and 18 now, but I felt that same sort of vulnerability of I don't quite yet know how to handle this, or I don't know how to answer that question, or gosh, I don't know what they're going through right now. I don't know how to show up for that. Life presents these spaces, these liminal spaces where we're between something and nothing, but we're about to make that nothing into our new potential. And sorry to get super philosophical about it, but
philosophical, because I agree. That's,
running for office feels a lot like that.
Which is where, even in my life, I've gone through a lot of growth in the last 2 years, and it's again, I like that metaphor of a tree. It's it's not growing at the trunk. It might be strengthening at the trunk, but it's not growing at the trunk. And if we just try to say the bud's too fragile, or if this could potentially happen, you're never going to see that magical growth. But if you put yourself out there, if you're vulnerable, it all comes together.
I think there's a lot of I'm going to wait for the ideal moment.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah. Whether it's launching a podcast or, starting a business or whatever, getting off your couch or going after a dream, a job, a trip, you want to figure out how to make it happen. That the launching, it's only in the doing that anything matters.
Yes. no one ever gets to the end of their life, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Like, no one gets to the end of their life is like, well, I overthought everything and I think I did it right. It's like, oh, if you're just sitting in your head and think of talking yourself out of everything you could ever do, then you're never going to do anything, and you're never going to know everything. There's never a perfect moment.
Right. That's so
important. The stars aren't going to align, and guess what? You'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. And honestly, I don't think I'm speaking too much out of turn with a lot of research that's been done about this, but women thinking about running for office often have a very different thought process than men thinking about it. I'm going to be binary because unfortunately the research is very binary up till now in that way, but that, women are thinking often like, I'm going to wait till my partner's job is in a more like comfortable place, or I'm going to wait till my children are much older out of the house, or I'm going to wait till I have my master's degree finished, or I've got a PhD, and men on average, according to research out there, aren't necessarily making those same considerations. And there's more of a willingness to jump in without those things about the relationships around us and our own accolades being in order. So you end up seeing often so many more men running for any given office than women. And when I ran for the first time in 2013, I ran for the city council. I believe at that time, women held 16% of all elected offices in the state of Utah. Wow. And when I got elected as mayor in 2019, I think that number had just come up to around 25%. Wow. So we are running for office more than we ever have been in the state of Utah. We are not yet at an equal playing field in terms of our population representation as approximately half of the world, half of this community. But in Salt Lake City Hall, we have that kind of equality.
Yeah, and that's like, is there change happening in a meaningful direction? Yes. But is it time to let up the gas? No. So we need more people to show up and take care of the community, because if you don't, someone else will, and they might not do it the way that you have a vision of, and maybe what's even best for the community. So the more voices we have, the better off we are in finding the one that's best for everybody.
Most of the time when I talk to people, actually, I mostly women come to me and say, I'm thinking about it. I've always thought maybe I could do it, but I don't know how you do it with all of the meanness that's out there, the criticism or those personal attacks. I don't know how you do it. And that you absolutely can do it. You can.
Yeah.
You have a lot of control over the way you manage what gets access to your heart, and distinguishing what's yours and what is not yours. The world wants to offer you a whole bunch of bleep that is not yours. Sometimes, here's the tricky part, often, and I believe actually always, there is something that you need to hear in even the most disturbing or toxic or combative, aggressive exchanges. Now, I'm talking about verbal exchanges. I'm talking about writing with people. I'm not talking about the comments section. That's a different level. And you can get people to help you out with making sure that you know what's going on there, but not losing your soul down the rabbit hole of comment section. And there is a way, because if you know who you are and you know why you're doing what you're doing, whether that's a decision you just made or a foundation of who you are in every decision you make, if you know who that is, then when somebody's telling you that you're something you're not, you know it. And you can distinguish that piece of the dialogue from the kernel that you really need to take into your heart. So I am always looking for, what do I really need to hear in this exchange? What do I need to hear in this article, this comment that I'm hearing out there? And then let myself be soft enough in my heart to take it in, even if it hurts.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's never look at comments. I'm glad that one day I would love to have someone be like, just or like put ChatGPT,
Have someone
just
else
summarize this for
me.
me.
There's other ways to know.
But I also love, like the one I usually sticks with me the most is like, if you wouldn't take advice from them, why would you take criticism? But then also I like your metaphor of like knowing who you are, knowing what you do. Because like, I mean, if you're a ship at storm out in sea and you don't have an anchor, you don't know where you're going to go.
Right.
But if you have, you're like, hey, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know the vision. I know the outcome I'm trying to have. Then the storms can come. Like, I'm still going to stay right here. Like you can keep doing all you need to, but still going to stay here.
The beautiful part, and I love seeing this in leaders. And I don't necessarily mean elected people. I mean like a teacher that I've known, or a great neighbor, or a small business owner, or a kid that I've met. But when they can say, I am really uncomfortable that you just told me that the decision I made, or the way I acted, or the behavior that I put on actually had this outcome for you. But you're right, and I need to know that. And now I want to be different because you've taught me. That's the beauty that as Americans, as human beings, we gotta like soften our hearts up, because this world that we're living in right now is trying to tell us that like we're actually not on the same team, and we should not have respect for each other and civility and any grace. And I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I will not believe it. Because I know that I have more in common with 99% of the people out there than I have in discord. Yeah. And I'm going to look for it, damn it. I'm going to find it.
Every time. No, I love that. That's how you find the right people and bring everybody together. But I want to pivot to kind of like the vision you had. So you went through city council, elected as mayor. I'm curious what, I mean, kind of your priorities were then, or like, I mean, obviously air quality was probably pretty top of mind, and maybe how those changed over time and where we see it going from here.
Oh man, there's so many. One of the best parts I think about actually getting elected, especially at the city council level, maybe anywhere in the world that has a city council, is you run for office for the first time and you're like, here's my 3 things or my 5 things that I really care about. And I think in 2013, I think mine were like, absolutely air quality was at the top, small local businesses, great neighborhood parks, bikeability. I don't know, maybe dogs were on there too.
I can get behind that one.
And like a family experience, having a great family life in this city. And then you get into city council work or the city and you're like, oh my gosh, there's actually 1,742 other subjects that I now get to become a neighborhood expert on and be able to make decisions and have the capacity to turn around and tell my neighbors, look, here's the reason. Here's what I figured out by asking these questions. These were the outcomes of the different decisions. This is why I made the decision. It is such a great experience. Like city councils if you love your community, you should run for city council. You will never know your community the way that the city opens up to you and your residents, your neighbors open up to you by running for city council. So I fell in love and became a city nerd. I fell in love with this place and the work and like the detail of talking about whether or not there's a women's bathroom at the back 9 of the city golf courses and how that actually impacts whether or not women are utilizing their public golf courses.
It was probably not a part of your first pamphlet that you
was
put
not
together.
On my flyers, no. For sure. Or the trade-offs of upsizing our public utilities, but the cost trade-offs there as we want to increase density in our built-out neighborhoods. Like, I love it all. Yeah. Love it. And it's definitely a frustration of my staff today that I want to waste. They would probably say, you're wasting your time trying to know every single detail when we have these incredible employees who know all those details for you, and you can just take the executive summary. I don't want an executive summary. I want to be able to explain the details.
Take me to the weeds.
At the city council, yes.
Yeah. And I love that you have this experience, because like you have this love for Salt Lake. You go on city council, you're like, actually, let's double down on this. And I think because I'm a Salt Lake City nerd, obviously.
I can tell.
This is my love language. This is my love letter to Salt Lake. But it's funny when people get me talking and I'll just go down this rabbit hole. They're like, how do you know so much random things? I'm like, ADHD, a rabbit hole in a good network. I can find out a lot of things, but the more I find out and the breadth of it all is fun, because my favorite rabbit hole recently has been our art community and understanding all of who the key players are, who is doing what, how it's impacting everyone, how everyone's becoming. People are buying art more in Salt Lake than they ever have, and those little things that you don't ever grasp until you just decide to cannonball in and start talking and poking around and arguably being selfish and just talking to the people I want to and hearing more. And so I don't know if I would ever want that level of city council or mayor. I'll let you take care of those. But it is fun.
But you'll think about it,
but
baby.
I'll think about it, baby.
All right.
How about this? I'll motivate someone else to do it for me.
Both.
Yeah, there we go. Actually, two questions. One I'll get out of the way first. So this is what I was looking at last night. I was actually at Urban Hill at dinner with a friend, and they were running late, so I pulled out my phone. I was like, let's look at the Erin Mendenhall, see how it goes. And so your husband's last name's LaMalfa.
Yeah.
Is he by chance related to the old principal at
Ensign? Sure is.
That's
makes
me
dad.
So happy. Because, Principal LaMalfa, so I went to elementary school through 4th grade at Ensign. And I knew him very well. I was not.
Were you in trouble?
I was a trouble child. Again, undiagnosed ADHD.
John LaMalfa is a wonderful human being.
Yes. And it was fun. So that was, again, I'm up until I was 10, I was at Ensign. He knew me well. And then go to Bonneville, Clayton, East. And in my first job ever at Immigration Market, back when they had, before became part of Harmon's, they had the patio. That was my first job as a server there.
When Western Family was the product line.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I walk up to this table, I can see it just like yesterday, and I look up and I'm like, Mr. LaMalfa. He looks at me and goes, Eric Nilsson. I was like, how's it going?
You survived, Eric.
Yeah, it says a lot when they remember your full name, and it's not like it's like you're not in
stern nod.
Yeah, stern nod. So I was hoping, it's enough of a last name I was hoping it was going to. So
the LaMalfas made a splash.
As you can imagine, I love a good Small Lake City moment.
There you go. 1 degree or less connection between most of us.
I challenge everyone.
Yes, my husband is, they're from Wisconsin, and his parents moved out here when he was about 4 years old.
Wild.
Yeah, and they're awesome. Great family. I'm lucky.
Yeah, I don't doubt it for a second. But let's pivot to today. Because I know, as a funny story, as a segue, so when I was living at my friend's house in Yellcrest, and literally 2 blocks away from my mom's house, working remote in his basement in my room, hear a doorbell, which, wild. The amount of doorbell rings you don't anticipate and then go answer is very low, but they rang twice, and I was like, I'll go figure this out. And I open the door, and there's the old Mayor Rocky Anderson staring at me.
Knocking doors.
And I'm like, hi, I know who you are, but I'm about to hop on a call, no. And how did that re-election campaign? Because so much of everything I saw from him was just I hate Erin, you should too.
Thank you.
And which I will never being against something is never for something. And
it's different.
It's very different energy. And love versus hate, I'll always choose one over the other. So as Salt Lake becomes this bigger dot on the map, we have the Olympics coming. There's a lot of changes that we've talked about that are happening with the entertainment district in Japantown, and seeing a lot of these infrastructural solutions coming similar that we did in 2002. As we're facing, like I said, the Olympics coming, a lot of this growth and a lot of the growing pains that Salt Lake's going through. How do you think about that today? And what are you doing to prepare? I
think there has never been a better time, at least this century, to be the mayor of this city. And you mentioned the election in 2023.
Yes, I had to put
my re-election campaign. Yeah, I was never running against anybody. I was running for Salt Lake City. I was running for what I believe was the best way to get the best outcomes this city could possibly muster. And that is about staying at the table so that we don't ever walk away. And let me tell you that actually is a really hard way to like stick to your guns. Like, because that means you got to like stay in the conversation, even when you feel like you're being attacked, when you're being misrepresented, when you're maybe your words are being manipulated. And I'm talking about relationships at the state level and things that end up having a real impact on the opportunity, big opportunities here, whether that's sport related or growth related, investments, infrastructure opportunities, companies deciding to stay or to come here. So staying at the table is Salt Lake City's best option, but historically it has not been the tactic of people that we always vote for. We've elected more than one mayor in our history who walked away or who decided to pick a fight and get a headline instead of staying at the table, forfeiting a headline and getting a better outcome for the city. And I was sick of seeing that. I think as what we call ourselves this blue dot in a red state, it's actually not that distinct. We're, as we talked about earlier, we're much more of a blend of things too, but I think we've voted sometimes in the past to have somebody who's going to, poke their finger in the eye of the state because we feel so frustrated and we feel so not represented often by the majority on that hill. But in the end, it has hurt us big time. And the tail of consequence to this capital city for those, what I think have been largely unnecessary pokes and jabs, have been so detrimental to the city. And we see that from Real Salt Lake not being in Salt Lake, but they wanted to be originally, to, I think, Silicon Slopes not being in the capital city, but being in a suburban environment. These things didn't have to go down this way. And that was a big motivation for me to run in the first place in 2019 for mayor, and absolutely a reason for me to keep going in 2023. And as I look at what we've been able to land, 2024 was a phenomenal year of ratcheting up this city. We were able to secure not only an NHL team in April in Salt Lake City, and of course we're still working on all of the streams of funding to make sure Salt Lake County can reinvest in their properties that are part of the Sports Entertainment Convention and Culture District of that 3-block chunk. But making sure that team was here when we know Ryan Smith said he wasn't looking here. He was looking to move that team down to Southtown Mall, basically. And in that same legislative session of the beginning of 24, we locked in future Major League Baseball in Salt Lake City at the Power District. I don't know that these things would have happened in the past. I think that the lure of the cheaper land and different politics outside of this capital city is strong. And fortunately, we were stronger. And it's right for these core functions of the economy to be in the city. It's right for the state. And the politics set them aside. Look at the economics that the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute and other economic evaluators out there say it's better for the state when you have a strong, intact capital city. And then in July, we secured the 2034 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And it's just been one of the greatest joys of things I've been able to be a part of as the mayor. And we're just 9 years out now. So those things are things that we had an opportunity to secure. But I want to make sure that we do what we need to do, what we deserve, what our future needs to keep not only our economy strong here, but our livability most of all, which is intertwined there for sure. But in the West, we have, as we've seen, fire right now in Los Angeles, serious drought effects, the threats of the Great Salt Lake drying up, and the threat of a climate disaster that could seriously upend whatever we do to secure an economy and our livability here. And to those ends, I think the Green Loop is the future of Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm. So for those who aren't familiar with the Green Loop, give us the
Yeah.
elevator pitch on what it is and why it's
Well,
important.
I start by praising Brigham Young because he said we got to have these really wide roads, public right-of-ways, 132 feet wide, so that as the lore goes, you could do a 4 or 6 ox cart U-turn. And it's really unique in any capital city to have such phenomenally wide public right-of-ways. So when Main Street put tracks in, we had the space for it to keep our big sidewalks, keep traffic in both directions, on-street parking, and dual direction tracks in the middle of the street. We have way more space than our traffic and even our traffic growth projections need on many of our downtown streets. So the Green Loop reimagines a chunk, but not all, of the public right-of-way to become a linear park and encircle the downtown of Salt Lake City. And in a rough way, it runs on the east side all the way up 2nd East. So right here out between Library Square and City Hall is 2nd East. It runs from 900 South up to South Temple, and then it jogs to North Temple and cuts over to 500 West, and then it goes south on all the way on 500 West to 900 South. And where we have the 9 line right now is sort of like the beginning spine of what would be the southern portion of the Green Loop. We're going to keep traffic direction in both directions all throughout the Green Loop. So we're not closing the street entirely for the Green Loop, but it takes over most of the street and makes large canopy trees, stormwater capture, places for your kids, places for your dogs, places for community gathering. Think about dog parks, playgrounds, mini stages, pop-up bars, pop-up library spaces, pickleball, running and cycling that goes throughout the Green Loop track. And the kind of activation that then could mean for the adjacent residents there, the businesses along those places. Like the Green Loop is not just a cool thing that anyone who comes to Salt Lake City is going to want to go experience, but it is a resilient solution for the future of this capital city.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, like the more walkability, the more we can interact with people. I mean, you look at so many cities bigger than us, around the same size, and so many have done something similar, created a large area of walkability.
Atlanta, Chicago, Highline, in New York, they all have iterations, some of them taking over old highways, some of them taking up over old rail corridors. But here in downtown Salt Lake City, we've just got super wide streets.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's nice that was once in the words of the Grinch, one man's garbage is another man's potpourri. And so a once problem is now becoming a good solution. But I want to go to kind of like looking forward and how we think about, as I talk to people in a lot of capacities, a lot of Salt Lake's future problems kind of come into 2 different kind of pillars. There's house affordability, which we could say is people being able to afford houses, and then also homelessness, and then the climate change side of things, and that's air quality. That's the Great Salt Lake you alluded to. I mean, would love to hear kind of your take on kind of what needs to happen and how we're going to avoid a lot of the big, scary headlines that we've seen about them.
So we're recording this on January 17th, and today is the deadline that the governor, speaker, and president gave me in a letter that they addressed to me on December 13th, so like 34 days ago.
Who's counting, right?
Yeah, right. To come up with a plan that they could consider partnering with us on as an alternative to significant legislation that they were planning to address the experience or the perception, or both, of unsafety and criminal activity on the streets of Salt Lake City, and essentially homelessness on the streets of Salt Lake City. And I think that this was a fantastic invitation. And honestly, I was stoked when I got the letter, which kind of surprised a part of myself. I think I don't know that I always would have had that reaction.
Yeah. Well, it goes with what you were just saying about you'll take the criticism because there's something to learn in it. So even if it comes across as whatever they're trying to communicate, like you're still like, cool, there's something I need to learn here. Or do. I'll take that.
And actually, two things are true at the same time. One is that crime is down in Salt Lake City. It's down 5% 23 to 2024. Violent crime is down 6% over the last 3 years. Property crime is down 18% over the last 3 years. Total crime in Salt Lake City for 2024 is at a 16-year low. That is true. And at the same time, it is true that people feel unsafe when they often experience people, sometimes who have severe mental illness, who are living on our streets, sometimes committing crimes, sometimes victims of crime, and behaving in ways that are not normal for general society because they have underlying needs that are totally unmet by the system, whether that is mental illness, substance use, behavioral health, or some combination of those. And our system in the state of Utah, frankly, across the entire United States, is insufficient at best at treating this piece of the population. And the homeless resource centers are a major breakthrough for the state of Utah, and especially Salt Lake County. They're really, really successful for most people who come in their doors. Like 85% of people who enter the resource centers resolve their experience of homelessness in 90 days or less. But we don't see them. So this small minority is having a tremendous impact on the feelings of safety, the actual experience of safety, and that this has an impact across the community, housed and unhoused, and most of all to humanitarian crisis.
Totally.
So I welcome the state, even if they were saying to me, and the governor has said many times, this is a state issue. It's a statewide issue. Should one mayor tell the state what to do? I'm fine with that. And this is a door we've been knocking on for 5 years. So I was grateful for it. We submitted the plan a day early yesterday. You can check it out on Salt Lake City Mayor's Office website. It's the public safety plan, and it has 27 specific actions that we are taking as a city that we have jurisdiction over, which basically includes public safety and housing. As you said, on the housing side, we're doing a few big things. One is we've been asking for more shelter since day one that I came into this job. And we know that the Utah Homeless Services Board at the state is working to acquire a really big chunk of property to do a large campus with low barrier emergency shelter. They were talking about 1,100 shelter beds, and we're working to push that up to 1,600 because we believe that's the actual need. But it's going to take a couple of years.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
So yesterday, I announced that the city is offering a piece of city-owned land as a temporary emergency shelter location for up to 2 years if the state and the philanthropic partners will bring the money to construct it and to operate it. And we're well into those conversations with them. We're going to expedite the future phases of the Other Side Village, our tiny home village.
I love Other Side. I had Preston Cochran on the podcast, and it was fun to learn more about that.
It's so awesome. That is another one of my favorite things I've been able to be a part of, because it was a dream I had to have a tiny home village here when I was on the council. So grateful for the Other Side Academy and then the Other Side Village that came out of it. Anyway, their forecast of future phases of development was pretty far off, and we're going to do whatever we can to expedite that as we own the land that they're on. And then we're going to put $5 million in this coming fiscal year into the deeply affordable housing creation that can happen. Over 70% of all permanent supportive housing in the state of Utah is right here in Salt Lake City. We need more of it in other parts, so we made 23 recommendations that have nothing to do with our municipal authority, but everything to do with the rest of the system, criminal justice, the jail itself, the state, which oversees, for example, the disability wait list for the state, of which almost 7,000 people are waiting for the state to put funding towards their disabilities. That includes severe mental illness and includes people who are on our streets today.
Totally. I love that so much for so many reasons, because kind of like you were talking about is you care about the city and the outcomes. And here's your olive branch of saying, hey, this isn't even I don't have authority to even do the things I'm saying, but if we want to do it, we have to work together. And I love that energy that you had of like the capital city in its states needs to be the leader in a lot of things. And I think this is a great opportunity to show that. But I also love, like, I think the best depiction, so I used to work, helping with a lot of consulting opportunities with like the Road Home, a role at Cicero Group that does a lot of help with the homeless population here. So got introduced to it there when I was in Seattle. One of the nonprofits at the company I worked for, we did that, or donated to that. But there's an episode of Malcolm Gladwell's podcast where he talks about homelessness, and I think is the most spot on I've heard, because he talks about how, he makes a comparison to police brutality, where it's a 90-10 issue. It's not like every single police officer is looking for someone to kill, but there are some bad apples that can be fixed, and the other 90 are great. And with homelessness, kind of like you alluded to, is most people that go into a place looking for help, it's an 85% success rate of getting them what they need to. And that's actually that dovetails well with exactly what he said, because he said the same thing. It's a 90-10. 90% of the people are like, listen, I'm down on my luck. I just need a little bit of help. Yeah. Let me get some footing under me and I can take care from there. And then you have like the 10% who are severely mentally needy, need a little bit more support and focus. And if we can instead focus 100% of our energy on the 100%, instead focus more on that 10%, we can have a lot more of those outcomes.
What's new with this is that the state actually opened the door, and we walked absolutely through it. We've been knocking at the door, but this is, I think, the first significant opening of that door to say we could take legislative action, but we would really rather partner if we can. And I think we all believe we know that that's the most effective way. And Salt Lake City's in a good position in our relationship with state leaders. Now, I'm not naive to believe that the legislature as a whole loves Salt Lake City. I hope they do. But right now our state leaders are, I think that they are being honest brokers with us in wanting to partner and wanting real solutions. So we said, hell yeah.
Yeah. Good outcomes come best when there's a partnership, not when there's a battle.
Yes.
And then, I guess pivoting to the, climate side of things. Same sort of question. What can we hope for? What are some of the things that we can do to make these problems that we see better for all Salt Lake City and Utah?
Salt Lakers are so awesome at being open to changing our behaviors and our consumption to protect our environment. And so much so that we, as a public utility, have asked Salt Lakers over the last 3 or 4 years to reduce their consumption, to help redirect more water to the Great Salt Lake, and to make sure that we don't drain too much of the reservoirs that we rely on. And Salt Lakers really responded with almost a 25% decrease in water consumption. Wow. It's big. And in some ways, it's kind of a difficult incentive for a public utility, because that means we have that much less revenue coming in to support our very old city in terms of our infrastructure and the fact that we're building a brand new water treatment facility because we have to. We have a very old treatment facility, and the federal regulations require a different, what they call nutrient content. Don't you love that?
Yes.
Coming out of their treated water, which our old facility isn't capable of. So we got to pay for that. We're asking people to give us less money. They're giving us less money because they're so good at conservation. But it's been a really good thing for the Great Salt Lake. It's been a good thing for our environment. And Salt Lakers are saying yes to our air quality investments. So we are on track still, tooth and nail, to make sure that we stay on track with Rocky Mountain Power as our partner and more than a dozen other municipalities that we are 100% renewable by 2030. And that has not been an easy path. It's not an easy path for Rocky Mountain Power right now in the state of Utah, and everybody knows about that. But they are still our partner in this 2030 commitment, not just a goal, a commitment. So we're doing everything we can to keep us there. And then it's small things too, like we created the exchange program where Salt Lake City, since 2020, we've been letting you bring in your gas-powered lawnmower or snowblower or other lawn equipment to exchange it for an electric model. And we've been subsidizing that, and we set aside a good portion of those for prioritized for West Side residents, because we haven't seen those residents as often participate in these kind of free exchange, or, you get a full rebate exchange program. And yet the West Side is historically the most impacted by our air pollution. So I'm proud of those initiatives. And then this year we did the e-bike rebate program, and we got e-bikes out there for community members. We also did, and we continue to do, free UTA bus passes for every single public school student in the Salt Lake City School District, every teacher, administrator. And then 2 years ago, we added one parent from each student household for a year-round free UTA bus pass. And ridership is climbing. Good. It's like skyrocketing with the kids. And as an air quality nerd, I am so excited about it for, number one, because now kids are riding the buses. It's taking money and time that parents would have to spend getting their kids around to school, putting it back into our families' households. But we're building transit riders for life. Mm-hmm. My kids ride the bus. They know how to take the bus. They're not afraid to take the bus. And they take that approach anywhere that we go in the world, that it's something that we should do. It's something we feel good about. So Salt Lake City's changing. We're changing the way we move. We're changing the way we invest in buildings. We won't invest in buildings anymore with RDA funds unless they're 100% electric. Good. For new builds. And it's all of we're eating an elephant. It's bikes, it's lawnmowers, it's snow blowers, it's money that we put into buildings. It's the way we build our own buildings. It's the 80 megawatt solar farm we opened just 18 months ago in the west part of the Tooele area, that now almost all of Salt Lake City's municipal power is solar, is renewable energy. And as that entire community will be there by 2030.
It's fun to hear everything that, like, it's fun to see someone who's done so much and be like, yeah, you want to hear what we're doing and have done? And it's like these 10 lists of like, and here's how it's all going so well. And I'm a big believer in, there's so many things that say that our fate is so tied with climate control, climate change.
Wellness.
Yes, climate wellness.
I got to give a shout out though, because the Salt Lake City sustainability team they are a well-tuned machine I came into a team as the mayor and basically wanted to just let them run with the big ideas that they had. And they're amazing. They do amazing work. So I just happened to be an air quality girl who came into a team here at Salt Lake City who was ready to run with it in a big way.
There you go. And it's fun to see the impact that you've had. Like, thank you so much for all you've done, because everything that I have experienced in other cities, especially like living in Seattle, it's fun to see what people have learned from those playbooks and be like, yeah, let's do it to our city. Yeah, we do want to be more bikeable. We do want more walking area. We do want to be sustainable by 2030. Yeah. And so thank you for all the work that you've done to make it all happen. I see and hear and feel the love that you have for this city, the people, and everything in between. So thank you.
It is my total honor and my pleasure.
Then want to end with the two questions I always ask everybody at the end of every episode is, one, if you could have someone on the Small Lake City podcast and hear more about their story and what they're up to, who would you want to hear from?
Ooh, Jeanette Padilla.
Jeanette, that was a fast answer.
Yeah, I was just thinking about her yesterday. She's awesome.
What does she do? I'm not familiar with her.
She brings nutrient-rich, high-quality, home-cooked food to our unsheltered communities and people in need.
I can't think of a better cause to talk to someone about.
Check her out.
Deal. And then lastly, if people want to follow more of the work you're doing, your office is doing, the city in general, what's the best place to keep in touch or find information?
Instagram, at SLC Mayor, at Instagram.
Okay. Instagram, SLC Mayor. Give her a follow. Keep in touch with the city. Lots of great news coming out. Erin, this has been better than I thought it was going to be. I'm so glad to have you in leadership.
I'll try to take that as a compliment. That's one of those golden nuggets in there.
I always try to keep everything even keeled, because sometimes I'll go in and be like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk to them, and I'll walk up and be like, why was I pessimistic? Or even then if I go...
You were pessimistic about talking to me?
No, I just had high expectations, and it's even higher.
Oh, thanks. This was fun. This was really fun. Thank you for having me on the show, and I'm so glad that you're making our Small Lake City just a little bit bigger by talking with so many awesome community members.
Hey, thanks for being part of it. Appreciate it, Erin.
Thanks.
See ya. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Salt Lake City Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, review, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. And we'll catch you next week. We'll see you there.